Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Alfred University Bergren Forum. My name is John D'Angelo, and I am a professor of chemistry and the coordinator for the spring 2024 season of Bergren Forum. Today is Thursday, April 11th, and for those of you attending the forum online here in Western New York, it is a gray and overcast day, rainy, but inside Nevins Theater, the Powell Campus Center, it is dry except for the free coffee and tea. Today is also my mom's birthday. Happy birthday, Mom. Before starting, we have a few announcements. First, next week's forum will be given by the winner of the Phi Beta Kappa Wit and Wisdom competition, Ash Julian. The talk will be on Ash's award-winning work, Stranger Things, Robin Buckley, and the Female Autism Phenotype Theory. There are some other events this week to announce, namely Alfred's Flamingo Pop-Up Restaurant will be returning next week on Thursday, April 11th, right next door at the community table from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., which I remind you spans the time of the Bergren Forum. Please consider pre-ordering a meal to have during next week's forum. A link to do so is available on myalfred.edu. Later today, resident interdisciplinary media artist D.B. Amorin will give a public presentation at 4:30 in Holmes Auditorium. Also, finally, Hillel at Alfred will be hosting a Passover dinner on Monday, April 22nd at 5:30 in the nightclub. There's a suggested donation of $10. Today's forum will be given by Emma Robinson, Alfred University alumna from 2016 in chemistry. Go chemistry! The title of the talk is It's Okay to Change Your Mind, Navigating College and a Career in the Real World. Take it away, Emma.
Okay. All right. Thank you for having me today. So as Dr. D'Angelo mentioned, the title of my talk is It's Okay to Change Your Mind, Navigating College and a Career in the Real World. So this is just a little outline of the talk that I'm going to give today. I'll give a brief introduction. I'll talk a little bit about my experience. I'll kind of present the moral of the story, and then I'll build off of that from there. So again, as Dr. D'Angelo mentioned, I'm an Alfred alum. I graduated in 2016 with a degree in chemistry. I also was part of the Judson Leadership Center when I was on campus, both the Women's Leadership Academy as well as an intern there. Currently, I serve as the chair for the Judson Leadership Center Advisory Board. So it holds a very special place in my heart, and I have a lot of involvement with that. That brings me back to Alfred pretty often, which is really nice. So how many of you are aware of kind of this viral story that's been going around about Bridget Mendler? Anyone? No? Okay. So Bridget Mendler was a Disney Channel kid. She was on a show called Good Luck Charlie. She was in a movie called Lemonade Mouth, and she even had a stint in kind of the singing industry, as much of the Disney Channel kids do. So where is she today? She is now the CEO and founder of a company called Northwood. Northwood is a company that is aimed at building infrastructure on the ground that will serve as a data highway between Earth and the satellites that we have in space. So she has multiple degrees. She's getting degrees currently from MIT and Harvard Law in space law and communications. So a completely different path than what she started at. And I also would like to mention that this path is happening later in life than maybe for a typical person. She's still getting those degrees currently. She's in her 30s. So definitely changing the course and changing her path through the years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience. While it's not as impressive as Bridget Mendler's. I came into Alfred originally in 2012 with this goal of being a physician's assistant. That's what I decided I wanted to do in high school. However, I really wanted to come to Alfred because it's very special to me. So I started majoring in biology to get that initial degree before going into medicine. I ended up hating it. I really did not like biology. It just didn't resonate with me. It wasn't something I enjoyed doing. But I still wanted to be a physician's assistant. And I thought to myself, what can I major in that will get me there? That's something that I enjoy. So I ended up going into chemistry. I really liked the professors there. I liked the classes I was taking. I was good at it. And it just seemed like the most natural fit for me. about a couple years into my chemistry degree, I started to rethink what I wanted to do. And I decided I really wanted to work in the medical field, but with children. So I wanted to go into neonatal nursing. I even met with the UB School of Nursing to try to get an idea of what I would need to get in terms of classes and how I needed to progress through my time at Alfred in order to get into a program there when I was done here. After being exposed to a lot of different environments in chemistry and opportunities that, were out there and through discussions with my professors, I started to evaluate another option, and that was industry. So I was lucky enough my junior year of college here at Alfred to get an internship at PPG Industries in Wisconsin, working with coating development for industrial equipment. And it was really impactful because it showed me an entire new side of the industry that I had not even evaluated or thought of before. So when I came back to school my senior year, I had this new outlook in life of, maybe I'll go into industry for a little bit and see if that's something I would enjoy. However, in reflecting on myself as a person, I decided I don't feel comfortable at all graduating this year. I don't feel ready to go out into the world. I don't feel comfortable enough to be in a lab. It just didn't feel like I was ready. So again, in talking with my professors, they told me I could always go to grad school, and I didn't necessarily have to get a PhD. So I ended up getting a master's degree at Bucknell University in chemistry, just to prolong that time where I had to make a decision to get a little bit more experience. So when I went into Bucknell, I had this new outlook. I want to go into industry. I want to go into some type of research. Maybe that's not medical related. And so when I was reviewing the professors I could work with at Bucknell, one professor that stood out to me was a professor that was doing NASA-funded research. So this was my new path. I love space. I told myself, I'm going to work for this lab, and someday I'm going to go work for NASA. I'm going to pursue that childhood dream of becoming an astronaut that every little kid has. So I get on campus on the first day and I meet with this professor, and she tells me I'm going on sabbatical for a year. So she said, if you want to work for me, you can, but it's going to take a lot of independence, and you're really going to have to guide yourself through the whole thing. And as I said before, my whole goal of going to grad school was to get that independence, not to come in with it. So I decided it just didn't feel like the right fit to have to do that all by myself. So I found a different professor to work for, and I ended up doing what's called bioanalytical research. And the research that I did was actually in conjunction with a hospital. So I was tied completely back to the beginning, back in that medical industry that I originally wanted to go into. However, it was a different side. So instead of being a doctor or a nurse, I was doing the research behind the scenes. So I graduated from there and I came back to the Rochester area. I started working at Bausch & Lomb Industries, and I worked specifically in vitamin development. So they have a line of eye health vitamins. So this was a little bit along the lines of the healthcare industry still. I really liked it. Then COVID hit, and everyone, I think, evaluated kind of their goals in life, their priorities during COVID, what they wanted to do when we were done with quarantine. So I told myself, I don't want to be in Rochester anymore. I want to be in Buffalo with my family. That's my ultimate goal and priority in life. So I moved back to Buffalo about 2.5 years later. And I got a job at a company called Athenix, where I was a research scientist, and I was working on IV and syringe development as well as cancer drug development. This company was attached to Children's Hospital in downtown Buffalo, so I felt very immersed in the medical field. And this was truly, looking back, I felt like I was in my prime. This was everything I wanted to do. I would have stayed there forever. However, last May, they went bankrupt, and they called everyone at 6:30 on a Friday and said, today was your last day of working. So again, another wrench thrown into my plan, and I had to reevaluate what I wanted to do with my life, but it worked out. Now I work at a company called Alcogen. I'm an engineer. Alcogen is actually very well tied to Alfred University. It was formerly called Unifrax, if anyone's familiar with that. It's a ceramic engineering and materials science company. So they actually pull a lot of the students in the engineering program here out and give them jobs. So I was already familiar with the company, and I started that job about 7 months ago. And it's honestly my favorite job that I've had so far. So it's really interesting to kind of see this path that I've taken. And here's this, career that I never would have envisioned for myself, but it's everything that I could want. And even still, I have ideas of changing it again. I really love sharing science with the world, and that's truly what my passion is just helping people to learn about science. So eventually I wouldn't mind being a high school science teacher. That would involve going back to school. I'm already 30, so again, like later in life, I'm still changing my career path. So ultimately, the moral of the story is that it's okay to change your mind about what you want to do with your life. It's going to happen. Whether you'd like it or not, you'll have wrenches thrown into your plan, you'll change your priorities. But the most important part of that you have to recognize is that it is okay to change your mind as long as you are focusing on the strengths and the skills that you bring to the table and maximizing those things. You will be successful at whatever you do if you can do those things. So the next part of my talk is going to focus on this book. It's called Strengths Quest. I don't think the book exists anymore, but this book was given to me when I was in the Women's Leadership Academy at Alfred. I actually have it with me still, and you can see all of my notes in it. What this is, so now they have an online platform, so if you're interested in doing this, you can absolutely go do it. What it is you take this kind of like a personality test, and what it does is once you're completed with the test, it'll sort you out through about 34 strengths that you have. So it'll identify these strengths, which ones that you identify the most with, and then you can use the resources that they give you to affirm those strengths, determine if you identify with them. It will talk to you about how you can apply those strengths in academia, and then it will also talk with you or give you resources on how you could apply those strengths in a career as well. So this was kind of a turning point for me when I was at Alfred, because it showed me what I was really good at, and it helped to show me how I can progress through my life and my career by focusing on those strengths and determining what I do well, what I might do well in career-wise with those strengths. So I'm going to go through each of the strengths. The goal is I want everyone to kind of get the exposure to each one, and maybe you can feel as though you resonate with certain ones. I'm also going to present the career suggestions for those strengths again. So maybe if you are still a little bit confused or you're thinking about changing your path, if you identify strongly with any one of these strengths, it might give you an idea of something that you could look into. So the 34, I think it's 34 strengths filter out into 4 domains. You have the executing domain, the influencing domain, the relationship building domain, and the strategic thinking domain. So the executing domain are going to be your strengths that allow you to be the type of person that knows how to make things happen. So you're a real go-getter. You like to hit the ground running. Your influencing domain are going to be any type of strength that allows you to be the type of person to take charge, to speak up, to make sure that yourself and maybe the people around you's voices are being heard. Then you have the relationship building domain. So these are strengths that allow you to be the type of person that can build really strong relationships with other people. Maybe you're really good at building teams around you of people that will help to contribute to the greater good, all things like that. And then you have the strategic thinking domain. So these are going to be your strengths that allow you to be really good at analyzing, at critical thinking skills, informed decision making. So this is, again, an outline of the executing domain. There's about, I think, 7 to 9 strengths in each domain. So I'm just going to go through them again so that you have an opportunity to be exposed to them and determine maybe if you relate to some of these. So the first strength in the executing domain is achiever. So this is going to be someone who is very busy, but they're also very productive in that busyness. They get satisfied from their accomplishments, and they're probably someone that might be deemed a workaholic sometimes. In a career, an achiever will do really well in roles where they feel challenged, roles that will reward that hard work that they're putting out. Also jobs that have incentives that motivate you to work hard. The next strength in the executing domain is arranger. So this is going to be someone who's very organized, but not only are they organized, they're also flexible. They're really good at coordinating complex factors. Others might view this as chaotic, but for that person, it's normal, right? They're very good at taking a lot at once and organizing it out. So in a career, a job that would be well suited for someone with this type of strength would be somewhere where you can work with others and plan events, and environments that encourage multitasking, that coordination of many different things. So some examples of this would be event planners, your HR people potentially, and travel agents, all types of people that are kind of in that planning game where they're organizing a lot of different things at once. The next strength in the executing domain is belief. So this is someone who has very deep core values that are unchanging, that guide them through everything that they do. They're enthusiastic about tasks specifically that promote their beliefs. They might even have conflict with people that have opposing beliefs in some situations. So in a career, someone who has belief as one of their core strengths are going to do well in environments that fit their belief system, fit their mission in life. Workplaces that also respect work-life balance so that they can practice the beliefs that they have outside of their work environment. So some professions that fall into this are law enforcement, social work, teaching, ministry, which seems pretty straightforward. The next strength, which is actually one of my largest identified strengths when I took this test, is consistency. So someone who has consistency as a strength will treat everyone equally with clear rules that they apply across the board. They're also probably offended when people use connections to gain an advantage or they feel that something is unfair. So in a career, someone that has consistency as a strength will do well in environments that have specific regulations, policies, and procedures. It'll be a very structured and predictable environment that is oriented around details. So some examples are quality assurance, risk management, and safety compliance, which I will just note, every job I've ever had has a component of one of these things involved. So very well identified for me. The next strength in this domain is deliberative. So someone who has deliberative as a strength will be really good at considering all of their options. They're probably someone who heavily weighs the pros and cons of everything that they're assessing. They're also very good listeners. They prefer to listen and absorb all of the information rather than to reveal things about themselves. And they're going to be good decision makers that have little regret about the choices that they make because those choices are so well thought out. In a career, someone who is deliberative will do well in environments where people are known for being discreet and trustworthy and absorbing that information. Environments where they can independently conduct their own analysis and thought process. So some examples of some careers that might be good for a person that has this type of strength would be risk analysts, financial officers, or law or judicial areas. The next strength in this domain is discipline. So this one seems pretty straightforward. This is someone who does really well creating order and structure where it is needed. So they're good at organizing themselves to get things done. Others might label them as a control freak, which it's a pretty strong term, but in a career, someone who has discipline as a strength will do well in structured and productive environments, especially environments that value an attention to detail and accuracy when you're completing your work. One of the suggestions in the book, which is kind of out of left field a little bit, is an air traffic controller. But this makes a little bit of sense, right? They're coordinating a lot of different planes landing and taking off, so they need a lot of discipline. You also have brain surgeons, executive assistants, and tax specialists. The next strength is focus. So this is someone who is going to be very good at taking direction, following through, and staying on track. They are probably going to be really good at prioritizing life and the tasks that they have in front of them, and then taking action on those things. And they're probably going to get frustrated if they ever feel like their goals are unclear or they don't have enough direction to complete something. So in a career, someone who has focus as a strength will do well in roles where the goals and the purpose and objectives are all clear and identified. Environments where there are few interruptions and little need to multitask. And ultimately, structured, predictable, detail-oriented environments. So you'll see in these domains that there are a lot of similar themes, potentially similar career suggestions. The next executing domain strength is responsibility. So this is going to be someone who's dependable, reliable. They're going to be that person that always comes through for others, and they'll typically rarely let people down. They also might feel overwhelmed by this at times because they have this pressure on themselves to constantly perform. In a career, someone who has responsibility as a strength will do well in roles where they're given responsibility, but responsibility that's progressively given to them over time of proving themselves and their capabilities. Responsibility will also do well in environments where they're focused more on the outcomes rather than the process to get there. Some examples are law clerks, librarians, and executive assistants. And then I believe this is the last one in this domain. This is restorative. This one's actually very interesting. So a restorative strength will be someone who is a problem solver. They're very good at analyzing situations, but the key here is that they're specifically good at identifying shortcomings. So others might actually clash with this type of person because they're probably very good at identifying problems and weaknesses and pointing those things out. In a career, someone that has this strength will do well in environments where they're specifically called upon to diagnose problems and find weaknesses, as well as careers where they can identify those problems, but also design the solutions for them. So some examples would be customer service, technical reps, surgeons, entertainment producers. The next domain is the influencing domain. So the first strength in the influencing domain is an activator. So this is going to be someone who sees how ideas turn into actions, and they're powerful at making things happen. They're going to be very effective at the starting line of what they're working with. So others might criticize them as being impatient. They'll do really well in environments where they have to have quick decision making, that's very valued. In leadership roles, and one example, the main example for this type of strength would be an entrepreneur. So that ties back to the whole effective at the starting line. A lot of times an entrepreneur is key at getting things up and running. So they do really well with this strength in that area. The next strength is command. So this is going to be someone who is very comfortable calling the shots and taking charge, specifically in moments of maybe confrontation, crisis, or emergency. And not only are they comfortable in handling those situations, but they can positively impact those around them in the midst of all of that chaos. So in a career, someone that has command as their strength will do well in environments that encourage leadership, especially ones that regularly deal with crisis or a need for rapid decision-making. So some examples are emergency responders, law, sales, politics, even theater. The next strength is communication. This one is pretty straightforward. Everyone probably knows that this is potentially an important thing to have in life. So someone with communication is going to be really good at talking, but they're also going to enjoy it as well. They are able to explain things very clearly. They're able to reach out and connect with people. So in a career, someone that's a very good communicator will do well where they can have that social interaction with other people. They can cooperate, they have interactive environments, educational environments. Some examples of communication as a strength would be comedian, a motivational speaker, a teacher, or even public relations. The next strength is competition. Again, this one seems pretty straightforward. So someone who has competition as a strength is going to work very hard to excel, but especially when they're compared to other people. They're probably someone that compares themselves to and their performance to other people as well. And they're always going to strive to win and outperform. In a career, someone that has this as a strength will do well in environments where they're challenged and they're rewarded for their achievements. Careers that measure success with scores, ratings, and rankings. So some examples of this would be sales reps, politicians, lawyers, athletes, and business leaders. The next strength is maximizer. So this is going to be someone who sees talents and strengths in other people. They love to help other people realize their potential and their talents, and they can identify what people will do best, even if those people don't know for sure. So some examples would be an executive coach, an athlete, a business leader, any environment that encourages best practices, collaborative work, especially work where you're helping others to see what talents they have and bring to the table. The next strength is self-assurance. So this is going to be someone who's very confident about their ability to manage life. They can bounce back from disappointments and crisis very quickly, and they will most of the time believe that their decisions are right and that they have a unique perspective. In a career, someone with self-assurance will do well where they are challenged but also given freedom. Environments that focus on prominent or critical projects. So some examples would be public presenters, working in sales, or working in entertainment. Again, that one comes up often. The next strength is significance. So this is someone who is going to want to have an impact on others. They enjoy receiving public recognition for the things that they're doing, and they want their contributions to always be viewed as significant. So significance as a strength will do well in environments where those significant contributions are visible and recognized. Careers where you can make a difference. And so some examples would be your nonprofit work, medicine, and politics. The last strength in the influencing domain is woo. This one's kind of fun, right? So woo means that you have this strength and ability to connect with people quickly, but in that connection, you're generating positive responses. So you're really good at adapting to new people, knowing what to do and to say, and you're really good at easily making friends. So you're kind of like a chameleon of some kind. In a career, someone who has woo will do well where they can meet new people daily. That's what they're good at. Environments that value your ability to persuade and make good impressions on the people that you're surrounding yourself with. So some examples would be your sales reps, attorneys, public relations, and entertainers. Then you have the relation building domain. So the first strength in the relationship building domain is adaptability. So this is someone who's really good at modifying themselves to meet the demands of the environment that they're in. They can easily adjust and naturally live in the moment, and they'll create a future based off of the choices that they're making right now, one at a time. In a career, someone who's adaptable will do well in environments that reward that responsiveness and adaptability. You'll also thrive in chaotic career environments, which is very unique. Not many people can thrive in chaos. Someone who's very adaptable will do pretty well. Some examples would be entertainment, designers, and producers. The next strength is connectedness. So this is someone who believes that all things happen for a reason. They believe that all things work together in a purposeful manner, and they'll bring people together by building a faith that's beyond themselves. So in a career, someone who has connectedness as a strength will do well in environments that allow them, again, to interact with other people, environments that allow you to help other people find a purpose in life, and organizations that mirror your own values. So this one was actually really interesting because it was the only strength that specifically calls out serving your country or your community. So it suggested Peace Corps, Habitat for Humanity, Teach for America, and AmeriCorps, all as potential options for someone who has this strength. The next strength is developer. So this is someone who naturally sees other people's potential to develop. They'll notice others' progress, no matter how large or small that progress is, and they'll enjoy being part of another person's development. So in a career, someone who's a developer will do well in organizations where success is based on your ability to help others to be successful. Collaborative and people-oriented environments. So some examples of this are counselors, teachers, speech therapists, and coaches, whether that's athletic coach or a life coach or an acting coach. The next strength in the relationship building domain is empathy. So this one's one that we probably all are very aware of. So someone who has empathy will be able to sense what it feels like to be someone else, to be in someone else's shoes. They can pick up on someone's feelings probably before that person even expresses it. And people will be drawn to someone who has this strength because they'll feel very seen, especially in times where they have a need or a problem. In a career, someone that has empathy will do well where they can have regular social interaction and collaboration. For this strength, the emotional tone of the environment you end up in is very important. You want to be somewhere where you feel your emotions are valued and you can value other people's emotions. So some of these examples would be teachers, counselors, clergy members. The next strength is harmony. So someone who has harmony as a strength will want peace. They'll always be trying to bring people together and see the common points that people have, even in times of conflict. They might be criticized sometimes for avoiding conflict in the pursuit of harmony. They'll do really well in careers that have structure and where they can collaborate. Specifically, environments where the consensus is the preferred strategy for making decisions, right? So if you're going by the consensus, oftentimes there's little conflict and things are harmonious. So some examples would be your statisticians, tax experts, and financial planners. The next strength in this domain is includer. So someone that is an includer will notice people who feel like outsiders. They don't like to leave people out, and they'll oftentimes reach out to those outsiders to include them. They're going to be seen as very accepting and inclusive people. Includers will be successful in environments where they can play that welcoming role and work with that group of people that might not always be included by others. So your special education teachers, maybe your youth workers, occupational therapists, and social workers. The next strength is individualization. So this is going to be someone who views each person as one of a kind. They naturally see how people who are different can work together well, and they know how to build very productive teams by maximizing on the talents that people bring around them. In a career, someone that has individualization as a strength will do really well working one-on-one with people and empowering them. Environments where they can serve as mentors and have that really key component in helping people build themselves. So some examples would be teachers, counselors, and corporate trainers. The next strength in this domain is positivity. So this is another straightforward one. So this is someone who's very enthusiastic. They're very good at stimulating people to be productive and hopeful. They can get people excited and engaged. In a career, they'll do well in those fun, fast-paced, people-oriented environments, but also environments that are relaxed and social and pleasant. Sorry. So positivity as a strength. Some examples of this would be your coaches and teachers, your sales reps, marketing execs, and realtors. So the last strength in the relationship building domain is relator. So this is someone who's going to be able to form very close relationships by relating with people. They're satisfied by working hard with their friends, and they'll form very deep relationships with a select small group of people. In a career, someone who's a relator will do well in environments where those meaningful relationships that they build are valued. Careers that encourage developing multi-level relationships. So not only just a surface level relationship, but you can build deeper into the people that you're interacting with. These are your counselors, teachers, HR directors, mediators, and school admins. Okay, so the last domain is your strategic thinking domain. The first strength is analytical. So this is someone who likes to understand why things are the way that they are. They'll take a very critical approach to things. They want to gather all of the proof, all of the data. They'll think about all of the factors that might affect a situation. In a job, someone who's analytical will do well where they can make decisions based off of evaluation of facts and data, and environments that give them the freedom to explore and think. So these are your science, forensics, computer technology, and journalism. The next strength is context. So this is someone who looks to the past to understand the present. They see patterns that can emerge from history, and they learn best when they understand that history and dynamic that came before whatever they're working on. In a career, someone with context will do well in environments that allow them to explore how things came to be. Interestingly enough, one of the things that this strength suggests is to explore collegial environments, especially colleges that have strong tradition in history, which reminds me a lot of Alfred. So someone that has this strength would do well in archaeology, as a historian, as a museum curator, or even your humanities professors. Then you have futuristic. So this is kind of like your Elon Musk or your people that are at the forefront of technology. So this is going to be someone who's fascinated and optimistic about the future. They can see detail in what the future might hold and clearly see all of the possibilities out in front of them. Futuristic as a strength as well in careers where they can help others to envision the future. Environments that reward having a vision, having creativity and invention. So these are your architects, designers, artists, and city planners. So the very futuristic people, right? The next strength in the strategic thinking domain is ideation. So these are going to be your creative and free thinking people. They appreciate originality and new ideas and new concepts. Others might view them as daydreamers, but they'll do very well in environments that reward creativity, environments where they are given the freedom to experiment and dream. So these are your strategic planners, your advertisers, consultants, market researchers, maybe your artists as well. The next strength is input. So someone who has input as a strength is someone who will always like to know more. Maybe this is a person that's really an avid collector of things. So maybe ideas, books, memorabilia, quotes, and facts. They'll have an active curiosity and they'll find a lot of different things interesting. In a career, someone that has input as a strength will do well in environments that focus on informed decision-making, careers at the cutting edge and the forefront of knowledge. So some examples of this would be your archivists, writers, IT, and media specialists. The next strength is intellection. So this is someone who's going to love to study. They prefer intellectual discussions. They like to think and let thoughts go in many different directions. And they also probably like to spend time alone to reflect and ponder on many different ideas. In a career, someone that has intellection as a strength will do well in careers where they have that time and space to think and reflect. Environments where they can share ideas and pose questions. So these would be like your editors, theologians, philosophy professors. The next strength is learner. So this is going to be someone who continuously wants to learn and improve. They enjoy the process of learning as much as they enjoy what they are learning. And that learning for them builds confidence. They'll do well in environments that encourage that constant learning, environments that value opportunities to develop strengths. These would be your college professors. And then the last strength I'm going to present today is strategic. So this is someone who knows that there's more than one means to an end. They can quickly pick out relevant issues and patterns, and they have that very what-if mentality. They can see, plan, and prepare for future situations. So someone who has strategic as a strength will do well in environments that allow originality and flexibility, environments that focus on the outcome rather than the procedures. These would be potential psychologists, people in law, people in consulting. So you're not going to fall into one specific domain with any of these, right? There's a wide variety of different strengths that fall into different domains, and you're not just going to be all of one domain. You'll probably be a mixture of many. And at the same time, you'll also have different levels of each of the strengths. Maybe, as an example here, you'll be very good at individualization, but not that much of an includer. And that's okay, because all of the talents and strengths that you have at the levels that you have them are what make you unique. So that was all Clifton strengths, right? But there's a whole other level to being successful as well. That's just having the basic skills that matter in a career that we talk about all the time, right? So communication's a big one, but this is almost like an umbrella. So not only can communication be like your conflict resolution, but this could also be, are you a good public presenter? Are you good at creating a good resume and communicating the skills that you bring to the table in a concise and well manner? You also have open-mindedness. Again, this is also kind of an umbrella. So are you good at working with people that have diverse backgrounds. Are you also flexible in what you're working on? Can you change gears? Can you keep an open mind about the things in front of you? Another skill that matters is problem solving. Are you good at evaluating problems and finding solutions? And you have responsibility. This is another one that we're told from high school is important. So are you organized? Do you have time management skills? All of those kinds of things. And then the last one, which in my opinion is probably the most important, is confidence. So you could have all of the skills in the world, all of the strengths in the world. If you're not confident about what you bring to the table in whatever career or environment you're in, those things are going to fall behind and you won't be as successful as you would be if you had confidence in who you are, confidence in the pathway that you're choosing. So the takeaway from this is that it all works out. How you change your path, when you change your path, if you change your path, it does not truly matter. You'll be successful in whatever you're doing, whatever your choice is at the end of the day, if you're maximizing the strengths and skills that you have and applying them in that field of choice that you end up in. So the last thing I want to talk about is going to be a little pitch for the Judson Leadership Center. This book, I think I mentioned earlier, I got when I was in the Women's Leadership Academy at the center. The center is the sole reason that I'm probably successful today. It taught me all of the strengths that I have, how to focus in on those strengths and how to maximize them. So if you're not familiar with the center, I definitely encourage you to check it out. If you're interested in kind of learning about the strengths that you have and learning how to build upon those strengths, they have a lot of resources that you can tap into. And that's it. Does anyone have any questions? Thank you.
I have one comment while we wait for hands for questions. I do want to say that as one of the chemistry professors, I really appreciate that the picture that you chose of somebody doing lab work, they had on their personal protective equipment with their
Important.
Hi, Emma.
Hi.
So way back at the beginning, when you had all your little tags for your path,
Mhm.
one of the first ones was your internship.
Yeah.
And you said, so when you got into the internship, you were out of your element at first when you started. So how did you decide to take that internship, or were you encouraged to take that internship?
So I'll start by saying I was encouraged very much. So I don't know if it's still around, but at the time that I was here, we had this big career fair for engineers, so engineering and STEM. I was encouraged by professors to go out and talk and network with the people at this fair just to learn how to have those conversations about professional, like in an unprofessional environment. And also, I just looked at it as an opportunity, right? So I came in with this kind of tunnel vision about only going into medicine. And some of the professors I spoke with were like, there's so many other fields you can go into in chemistry. And a lot of them you don't even realize until you have these conversations. So they're like, go see if you can get an internship. It'll be a summer experience. If you don't like it, at least you know. So when I went into industry, I was definitely out of my element. I did not know what to expect. But there were I had a lot of mentors in that job as well that would show me kind of how to operate, what kind of things were important in industry. So that was a really good experience as well. Did I answer that?
Nice. Yes. What year was the internship? What year were you? Like sophomore, junior, senior?
This would have been the summer after my junior year. And I actually didn't include it, but I had a second internship as well. Actually at this company, I had an internship there after I graduated before I went to grad school. So that also gave me a lot of experience in specifically like a medical health related industry that ultimately showed me that I really liked it. So definitely a proponent for internships. They're really good ways to see if you like something before you have to fully commit to a full-time job. So.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm one of the philosophy professors that you mentioned.
Wonderful.
Partly a comment, partly a question, and that is, as you talk about some of the qualities that enable a person to be successful, you're very much focused on the qualities and the traits of the person, of the individual.
Mhm.
But there is something else to take in mind, isn't there? And that is the sort of professional occupational environment that
Yeah.
we're going into.
Yeah.
And a couple of things occurred to me. One is that there are some professions that are in crisis. For example, journalism or
Yeah.
philosophy professor.
Yeah, yeah.
Or, and so if for instance, a student said to me, I'm really interested in becoming a professor of theology,
Mhm.
something like that. My advice would be to say, great, you have to be very, very much in love with that subject. You've got to
Yeah.
totally commit yourself to it, because chances are you won't get a job as a professor of theology.
Yeah.
There'll be hundreds of applications for every
Yeah.
one job. That's one kind of crisis where there's diminishing opportunities.
Yeah.
The other kind of crisis is you said you wanted to be a science teacher, possibly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not that we don't need science teachers. There's a tremendous demand for science teachers.
Mhm.
But in teaching, in high school teaching and middle school teaching, certainly, and elementary school teaching,
Yeah.
there's a very high proportion of the people in that profession want to leave
Yeah.
the job. And the reason is because they feel they're not being properly supported,
Mhm.
they're not being properly respected or compensated.
Yeah.
And so those are two environmental
Yeah.
considerations it's good to take into account as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so the book has a lot more information about career paths based on your strengths that I obviously couldn't fit in for every single one. But I will say that's a perfect example of that empathy one, where it tells you that you really need to choose your environment based on that skill set, because you will oftentimes need that emotional stimulation in that environment. You also brought up a point that I think is really relevant. You don't have to go into an area that matches your strength. You can also go into an area and not have a strength that really fits well with that. The important thing is that you do know what your strengths are and try to kind of mold that in order to be successful in the area that you go in. So I just want to say that. But yeah, there is definitely this crisis of a lot of areas of work that are kind of depleting in numbers. So the environment is really important, and that's something that hopefully as future goes on, the curators of that environment will take it into account and decide how they can get people more interested in those careers and bring in people that have strengths that match up with those. Anyone else?
Other questions or comments for Emma?
Yes.
Just because we're talking about
For the people on Zoom, for the people on Zoom.
the Women's Leadership Academy,
Yes.
I think it's also, when you're talking about crises, it's also fair to say that some people have ambitions and dreams,
Mhm.
and you will come up against sexism, racism, classism, and all those things, and to remain strong
Yeah.
and to know that that is what you want to do, despite
Yep.
the disparaging comments that come at you,
Right.
despite situations where, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And that ties again back to that final point that I made about confidence, right? So you really need to be confident in who you are and what you bring to the table so that you can filter out all of the people that are telling you you can't do it, or you don't fit here, or you're going to be held back by certain things. So having that confidence and knowing how good you are and all of the things that you are good at are going to allow you to get past that and to be above all of those things that might bring you down. So.
Let's thank Emma again. Only 2 more weeks.